Boom! What's going on, everyone? It's Rahman, and this is the Ends to Excellence podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today, I have a special guest with me. I have Andy Ayim here. How you doing, brother?
Good to be here. Love the boom.
Yeah, brother. I have to represent, bro. Andy is the managing director of Backstage London. He's one of the co-founders of Mixtape Madness. Andy, thank you again for joining.
Thanks for having me.
First thing we ask our guests is, what ends you from, brother?
I'm from Tottenham, North London,
Yeah.
born and raised. Although I live in Essex now, a good 25 years roughly more. I spent growing in and around Tottenham.
Cool, cool, cool. And what industry would you say that you're excelling in right now?
Tech industry. So any apps that you see on your phone, the websites that you're probably using every day. I work a lot with investors that put money behind a lot of those ideas when they're early. Most of them fail. The ones that don't are the ones that make it to your smartphone, such as your Spotify's, Shazam's, I don't know, Gmails, and all of the other apps that you use on a daily basis.
Got you, got you, got you. Like, how did you get into this industry? Like,
No, it's a good question. So, I think we first met at Brunel University.
yes, yes, for all
Around
those
what,
don't know.
8 years ago or so, showing our age.
Mad.
And at the time, I realized that like I was never really one to be like super academic. I was never really like incentivized or motivated by like qualifications. I always thought qualifications was a proxy of like future performance. So like just because I've gone to Oxford, let's say, and I've got first, that shouldn't correlate and say in your mind that I'm going to be excellent at X job or Y job. So at uni, I kind of realized that, and I wasn't anti-system. I just felt like I'm going to do what I enjoy most, and I'm going to double down on that. And the module that I really loved and enjoyed most was our module on entrepreneurship, because it gave me the creativity and space to start working on projects that were interesting to me. I don't know if you remember at the time, but I did something called Safirm
I remember.
with Abdul and a good friend of mine called Abdul and another friend called Dennis. And we did employability and entrepreneurship workshops for young people in different universities and colleges.
Yeah.
And it was just meant to be like a side project. It grew into something that was earning revenue, and we're going around and doing it in different like schools, universities, churches, institutions. And then we asked ourselves, like, this honest question of like, we're teaching people a formula that we truly believe in and it does work, but we haven't actually succeeded at getting into careers ourselves.
Yeah.
And we haven't succeeded at careers ourselves. And if we were in that position, we'd rather learn from a practitioner who's been on that journey.
Yeah.
So it's like choosing whether you want to learn football from David Cameron or David Beckham.
Got you.
You're going to choose Beckham.
Yeah, yeah.
So at that time, we all said, let's put some firm on pause and let's put our formula to the test and get into good careers.
Yes.
Abs ended up at Twitter.
Yep.
I ended up at Ernst & Young. Dennis ended up at another investment bank. So it showed that the formula worked.
Yeah.
Like, we were guys from ends. We knew how to apply this formula and how to speak the game, learn the game, and get into these great companies. Then as soon as we got into these companies, I guess it just spiraled and grew into other things.
What's the first thing someone needs to do to get into your industry, should I say?
So for me, I think is take a step back and really start thinking about like, what are the things that really intrigue you? Like, what are you most curious about? And I'll give you an example of a story of mine. During my placement here at uni, I did a 1-year job at in an accounting team
ICAP.
at ICAP in the city. Yeah, remember. And what it taught me was that like management accounting was quite repetitive, and therefore I found it a bit monotonous and too routine. So it didn't stretch my mind and intrigue me and interest me in the way that I thought it would. But what did really interest me was that everyone was telling me stories about them going traveling. And all of my counterparts were white, but they were telling me about stories of went to Australia or went across Africa or South America. So the thing that was a burning desire in my heart was, when I leave this experience, I need to carve out some space so I can go traveling.
Got you.
And growing up in the black community from Tottenham and from ends, like, as soon as I say to my friends, like, I want to go backpacking, the first thing they said was, that's not a black thing to do.
Mad.
If I said it to my parents, they were like, I don't understand what you're doing. No one in our family lineage has ever been to South America before. But I've trusted you thus far, so I'll trust you then.
Yeah.
And thank God for them to have that approach, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I remember getting on the plane on my 3-month trip to South America. And when I arrived, I remember feeling like, what the have I done?
Yeah.
What am I doing here? Like, I'm in foreign lands. I'm alone, I'm out of ends, I'm slipping.
Yeah.
Like all of these thoughts,
Yeah.
this like imposter syndrome starts playing on your mind.
And you're on holiday, bro.
But all of these this defeatist mindset just layers on top.
Yeah.
You know, and all this doubt, and then looking back, like that was the best 3 months, one of the best 3 months of my life.
Dope.
But
So-
it came from feeding my curiosity, and anyone that wants to get into this industry or other industries, you don't start there. You start by really paying attention to what you're curious about, and you double down on that.
Yeah. So as far as like backpacking, let's go back and let's unpack that. So
Let's unpack that. No pun intended. Yeah.
There you go. Smooth. You were in South America for 3 months, and like, did you have to work, or like, how did you sort out that situation?
Yeah, no, it's a great question actually, because money does come into it. So, what happened is when I graduated from uni, this is what I'm saying about the. So when you go to a private school, right, you have what I call the private school privilege,
Yeah.
and that is the network that you form.
Yeah.
Okay, and that network opens doors for you. We didn't go private school.
No.
Okay, so we had to build up those networks from scratch.
Yep.
So when I was on my placement year in the city, I started joining something called the Interbank multi-bank interracial network.
Okay.
And it was the top 10 investment banks in the city, as well as professional services firms. And it was anyone black that worked in any of those places will get together in these events.
Dope.
And I started forming relationships of people in JP Morgan, in Merrill Lynch, in Ernst and Young. And all I was doing is asking them, like, what do you do? What does that mean? So on a daily basis, what do you do?
Yeah.
So when you're working on deals, what does that mean?
Got you.
When you're in Excel, what do you actually do? And I was just feeding my curiosity, but gaining a baseline understanding of what each role does. So I understood what M&A meant versus consulting versus auditing versus tax. And then suddenly I could say, actually, the thing that I'm most curious about that you shared to me that is very similar to my love for entrepreneurship was management consulting.
Got you.
So I got a job in Ernst and Young, but it was a deferred entry, which
Okay.
meant that the job starts in a year's time. So that now gave me the time to basically, I was temping in random jobs.
Yeah.
Did accounting because that's what I did for my placement. So I know I can leverage that to get a good day rate.
Yeah.
Temped for 3 months in like private equities and random odd companies. Saved up my money and then booked a 3-month experience with Gap Adventures.
Okay.
Because at the time I didn't understand how to pull together an itinerary. I didn't even know what South America was like. Let's be real. But I want that cultural shock. That's why I didn't do Africa at the time. I wanted the cultural shock.
Okay.
So I learned a little bit of Spanish. Learned a little bit of Portuguese, poquito español.
Hey.
A little bit of Portuguese, and I just jet setted. Made my budget. In total, it cost about like 3 to 4 grand. And it was one of the best decisions I made in my life at that time.
Dope. So what were some of the things that you learned from backpacking?
I learned that, like, as humans we have more in common than what separates us, because I was connected with people from Germany, from Brazil, from Peru, and what was really connecting with us was the stories that we were telling. You know, and whether it's stories about love, about heartache, about death, we all experienced that, right? And actually, when you really think about how to connect with other humans, you need to find what those common strands are. And I became much more confident now with connecting people that were from out of ends. You know, I was suddenly actually much more open-minded than just my postcode, which is what I was before going to uni, especially. You know, even at uni, to be honest, I kept a very close and tight-knit circle of friends because this trust factor from friends that followed me into uni, if I'm being honest. You know, like, it took time for me to even become friends with South Londoners. I thought South London was a dodgy place. Like,
what do you mean?
South of the river was foreign to me, you know. You know, but now look at the lovely relationships we have with people like yourselves, Abs and stuff. So I think the biggest lesson I learned there is just like being open-minded and learning actually that there's so much more to life when you understand someone else's paradigms and perspectives.
100%.
Yeah, and it helps me when going into any future jobs because that backpacking experience became a common story I could tell in an interview. And a lot of the times the person's either been there or would want to go there or had a backpacking experience somewhere else.
100%.
And then suddenly actually it becomes into such a human connection and conversation rather than like an assessment of an interview question.
Yeah.
A lot of the times with interviews, people are trying to figure out, like, is this someone that I'd get along with and work well with, you know?
100%.
And that's good and bad, right?
Yeah.
You want different thinkers which will challenge you and bring a different perspective into work. That's what diversity and inclusion is about. But at the same time, you genuinely want someone that you feel like you can work alongside and actually adds and evolves your environment.
Thank you for that, Andy.
I didn't fully answer your question about how did I break into tech, but honestly, it's not a cop out like that. Following your curiosity and doubling down on that,
Yeah.
that is the route into any career.
I totally agree with that. But for someone that doesn't know anything about it, they heard you're working on apps or and the things that you mentioned before, like what would you say would be their first thing to do? Should they get an internship or do they need to go to uni? Are there apprenticeships involved?
So I think the first thing is like start consuming content, like
Okay.
whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, like major online courses like edX or
Mhm.
Khan Academy, um, just Udacity.
Mhm.
Just start doing courses. Like
Okay.
if you're truly interested and intrigued,
Yeah.
you'll have the drive to go through those courses.
Got you.
Actually, if you go through it and you realize actually this isn't for me, that's also
Yeah,
good.
you've learned something.
Because yeah, you've learned something.
Yeah.
You learned that that's not for you.
Yeah.
So I would try and consume as much content as possible because
Okay.
you also want to go into these opportunities, whether it's an internship, apprenticeship, or through like university, then applying to a job. You want to
Mhm.
go into it having an opinion
Yes.
and form an opinion based on what you're consuming.
Got you.
So you need to try and like consume as much as you can
Mhm.
so that you can go in there and have an informed opinion.
Got you.
So if I was starting again today and I just finished university,
Mhm.
my first real career job in tech wasn't management consultant, it was product management.
Okay.
And what I would do is I would look at what meetups and events are going on. I'll literally
Okay.
go on meetup.com and eventbrite.com and
Mhm.
I'll attend those.
Got you.
So in the product world, there's something called Product Tank that happens every month. I would attend that.
Okay.
I would network with people there. I'll pay attention to the talks.
Mhm.
I'll learn what are the leading authors in this space.
Got you.
And Marty Kagan, who's
Mm.
written Inspired. Mark Abraham, who's written the Product Management Toolkit. I'll read those books.
Got you.
I'll learn who the leaders are in that space. I'll consume their content and I'll form an opinion.
Got you.
I'll start reading blogs. I'll start even publishing my own blogs once I've
Mhm.
formed an opinion.
Mhm.
Because if you're really interested in a subject, you'll double down on it.
Got you.
If you're not, you can quickly figure out actually this isn't for
Not
me
for
because
me.
I'm not willing to put in the work.
100%.
So I'll do that first before even applying to any opportunity, and then
Okay.
actually through your networks you should try and get your first opportunity.
Got you.
Yeah, because warm intros are always stronger than cold applicants.
100%. I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. So you'd say maybe from going to these meet tanks, you called them.
Yeah,
right?
meetups. So Product Tank
So-
is an example. The product group is another one.
Also, the product tank is a type of meetup. you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, absolutely.
And-
So it's a collective of product managers that get together.
Mhm.
There'll be a topic for the event, such as like user testing,
Got you.
free talkers, question and answers,
Mhm.
then open networking.
Got you. Got you. So okay. So let me just unpack all of that. So
Yeah. There's also podcasts as well. There's a ton of podcasts on product management and other topics as
that
well.
you can learn from and
Absolutely.
form an opinion from
Absolutely.
as well. So you're someone that's intrigued with this industry, you do all your research and you form an opinion, then you go to these events where like-minded individuals are, and potentially through those meetups you would have a warm introduction to maybe get an internship or paid work.
Absolutely. Or even a mentor, so someone that actually has been on the path that you're looking to go on,
Got you.
right? So they can help you learn from their mistakes rather than making those mistakes yourself. And remember, there's no like silver bullet. It's not if Andy's done it this way, it means I must do it this way.
Yeah.
But this is going to work for some of your listeners, and that's who I'm talking to most, I guess.
Yes, 100%. So, what would you say was your biggest hurdle working within the industry or getting to become the managing director? We haven't actually talked about Backstage, but we'll get to that.
We'll get backstage. We're on stage right now.
Facts,
So
facts.
the biggest hurdle for me at the beginning was this imposter syndrome I had. So
Okay.
like I was from ends, like you said, like I had a lot of issues around like trust and loyalty,
Mm.
and actually like even articulating myself in the right way in the work environment. So like even in my first job at EY, a lot of people probably thought I was shy because I was 60% of my true self. I wasn't my most authentic self. I wasn't doing my best work because I felt like I had to adapt and flex myself in that environment to fit in.
Got you.
And I just wasn't confident enough in my ability at that time. And then after that role, I did a short stint at an advertising agency, and I remember the inflection point for me was when my father passed away.
Okay.
It just reminded me that life is too short, and I just was like, look, fuck it. Any opportunity I go into from now on, I'm gonna be 100% me, and you're gonna take it or leave it, but I'm gonna bring my best self to work.
Got you.
And the work I manifested from that point onwards, honestly, was first class.
Got you.
So it was like there's a business I did with my brother and a few friends, Mixtape Madness.
Mhm.
We just grew that really fast.
Yeah.
When I started working for this management consultancy called Elixir, again, ex Oxford and Cambridge heads,
Mhm.
I excelled. I did
Dope.
my thing because I brought myself to work.
Mhm.
Like I remember within that business, I started a business within a business, which was their innovation arm out in Silicon Valley and San Francisco. Spent about just under a year there. That's one of their biggest revenue drivers till today.
Dope.
Like, I was just able to manifest myself
Mhm.
just by being free.
Got you.
You know, and it was such a difference from the start of my career, which a lot of graduates face, where they're 60% of themselves because they think they have to be,
Yeah.
versus people who then are 100% themselves, like myself.
Mhm.
And now through intention and being 100% of myself, I'm just always doing mission aligned work.
Got you.
Like the work I'm doing now at Backstage, we invest money and support entrepreneurs who are women,
Mhm.
like people of color,
Yeah.
or LGBT founders.
Dope.
Like diversity and inclusion is literally in our investment thesis, you know. And to be in a position now where I can like support a mission like that is
Mhm.
through intention and through being open and building that network intentionally
Got
all
you.
those years ago.
That's really interesting. You say that. So you started manifesting like great work and doing your A game first class stuff when you were your most authentic.
Absolutely.
Like,
And actually, just to add on to that, like,
Mhm.
I realized that, like, coming from a working class, lower class background in Tottenham
Mm.
and being black and being a man gave me an edge because it gave me a perspective that was different,
100%.
you know. And I started manifesting that as a strength rather than a weakness, you know. So I'd go into an interview and I'll say, like, you know, I'm from Tottenham, North London, where actually over 300 languages are spoken and over 90 nationalities exist. It's one of the most multicultural wards in the whole of Europe.
Mm.
That has differentiated me from anyone else coming in that interview. I'm telling you not
100%.
only where I'm from, but like I was born and molded by diversity and inclusion,
Yep.
and that's just me off the bat telling you who I am.
Yeah.
Like people are interested off the bat because I was willing to go to that extra mile to even Wikipedia page
that fact. Yeah.
my end
Yeah.
to understand actually this is where I'm from.
Yeah.
My end is great.
Yeah.
That
100%.
my end is great. And
100%.
greatness has come out of my ends, and I'm just one of that. I'm one of the people that are great that are coming out of my ends.
Come on, that's
It's not
really
just
dope.
music. It's not just entertainment.
Exactly.
You know?
And hopefully with this podcast, that's one of the goals I have. Like there are other opportunities that people from ends can obtain.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
100%.
And one of the things actually, I know I keep on adding on, and you've got
Nah,
so many questions to
brother,
ask me, but
do your thing, bro.
like going into uni, I was fortunate that like through my mum, my dad, like societal intervention, I recognized that like instant gratification wasn't for me. So I was never attracted really to doing the ACs, to like shot in, and it was all around me, like
Yeah.
access wise, like robberies, like it was all around me.
Peer
A
pressure.
lot of my friends were doing it, and they weren't peer pressuring me.
Yeah.
And I knew man them. Like I was one of those guys like in ends that were just connected.
Yeah.
But I just knew that the risk return of doing that activity we far outstripped from me succeeding in professional services. And actually the risk is much lower. Like I'm using a company's money and infrastructure, and the returns potentially are much higher.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, just economically, it made so much sense to double down on going down the professional services route. You know, and now I'm in tech. Like I'm seeing the benefits of that compound interest, that long game. Like over time, it's like a snowball effect. It just builds and builds and builds. You know, and I still have friends in ends that are still doing a lot of that shotting or robbing, and they're still my brethren. But we're in different places right now, and it's because
100%.
of that, and they know that.
Yeah.
You know?
I have similar. I'm in a similar situation to you where it's probably like one of the reasons why I did this podcast initially and went into engineering. So just to give a little background, so I made a conscious decision that I wasn't gonna get involved in the madness like you. I had friends that were affiliated with all of that kind of stuff, but I told myself, and especially for like the youngers around me, maybe like 2 or 3 years younger than me, like I'm gonna go to uni, show them this thing, show them that like it bangs, and then they will like follow. But little did I know at the time that it's not as quick as I thought it would be. So I thought I'd go to university, go to university, get the job, get mad pay, mad peas, and like straight off the bat, and then come back and show, look, I'm balling, kind of thing. But by that time, I didn't realize, obviously, they're like a few years behind me. They need to make their decisions themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's almost like I felt like I kind of let them down, kind of thing, because I went to go and pattern my thing, but really and truly, they needed to figure it out themselves, and then the divide just happened. Like they fell for the peer pressure, or I didn't succeed. Not I wouldn't say succeed in time, but the time that I thought I would have come back and shown them, it was too late, so to speak, kind of thing.
I love what you just shared about like the fact that you feel like you let them down, because it's so hard when you're trying to pattern your thing,
Yeah.
but you want to remain accessible. Because I related to that straight away. I was like, I wish I was in the ends more and I was more present
Yeah.
to ask, like, for people to ask me questions, for me to answer questions, for me to be available, for me to share more about what I do, for me to share more opportunities with them. You know, so when you say I let them down, I get that and I understand that fully. You know,
Yeah.
and now I try and do talks in schools and I try and go back and give back so that I can create that awareness I wish I had at that age and be the first member in their network just to help them along this road.
And know that you're from the same background as them, and
Oh,
they can speak to you on a level,
absolutely,
and
absolutely,
you're just like a phone call or WhatsApp away, like just
absolutely.
to get
It makes a
information
huge
from them.
difference,
Hundred
you know.
percent.
And for
Because
them to know they can talk to me and have a well-rounded conversation, whether it's about gal, weed,
mm,
drill, or work,
yeah,
you know,
it's all there.
it's a different connection.
100%. So yeah, no, I thank you for that, bro. One of the things I wanted to say as well, I've actually lost my train of thought, but yeah, you spun me still.
The,
Can't lie.
the other thing I'll say as well
Go
is
on.
like when you're from ends, like Selim is the case where, like, if you do go on holiday with your family, you usually go to your country of origin. So I'm from
Yeah.
Ghana, so we went Ghana. Like Nigerians will go Nigeria,
Mhm.
but like our parents, they're first generation, and we need to remember that their ultimate sacrifice was sacrificing the life they knew in the country they was in to give us an opportunity by being born here in the UK or in London.
Yeah.
Like, and some people take it for granted, they don't realize it, but when I've worked in South Africa, I visited Soweto, which was the ghetto and the hoods there. When I was in Brazil, I visited favelas. And the thing about it in those kind of ends, yeah, which are truly deprived and it's true poverty, not even comparable to ends in London, is that like the kids there have high potential just like us, but they've got such low access to opportunity.
Yeah.
And being born in London, we have high potential and such high access to opportunity that it's actually like sad and a waste when we're not actually taking advantage of that.
Got you.
There's only a few cities in the world where we can have that. And I'd encourage people from 14, 15, 16, just travel and go to places. Go to places outside of your environment, outside of your culture, whether that is a Peru, a Brazil, a Thailand, a Hong Kong, a South Africa, a Kenya, because that's going to open up your mind when you see other cultures and how they operate.
Yeah.
And it's going to inspire you and give you different ideas on how you can come back and operate. You know, so traveling is another one where a lot of it's due to economic reasons and not being able to afford it. But if you travel more, honestly, you come back just changed and different.
Your eyes will be more open.
Absolutely,
100%.
absolutely.
So we've held out for quite a bit now. So let's go into what you currently do.
Sure.
You're
Sure.
a managing director of Backstage. Tell us a little bit about Backstage
Sure.
and you being a managing director.
So Backstage was started around 3 years ago by a lovely lady called Arlen Hamilton, and she built an investment thesis based off pattern matching herself. So what that means is that she's a gay black woman from America. So she said, I'm going to invest in LGBT founders, people of color, and women.
Got you.
Because I understand that because I am them.
Mhm.
Okay. And she ended up raising in total around $5 million, and she invested in 100 startups, really small ticket sizes of like 25 to 75K, let's say.
Okay.
And then last year, well, about 2 years ago nearly, I interviewed her for a podcast just like you're interviewing me, but I
Okay.
never released a podcast.
Okay.
But off the back of it, we vibed and we got on.
Yeah.
And we formed a relationship, and I was basically lobbying for about 6 months for her to come into the UK and invest here in the UK and building that case for why the UK is a good place to invest. And we had a range of public and private events for her to meet the ecosystem, so to meet founders, angel investors, which are high net worth individuals that invest money individually, or VCs, which are venture capitalists, which are companies that raise money so they can invest into startups.
Got you.
And she was meeting a lot of different actors in our ecosystem. And then she decided last year she wanted to launch an accelerator program. And that accelerator program today has manifested itself, I guess, in 4 cities: in Detroit, which kicked off this week, literally, Philadelphia, which kicks off next week, LA, which kicks off just before London, and then London, which kicks off in the first week of April.
Got you.
And I'm the managing director of the London team, work alongside 2 awesome operators and entrepreneurs, Anissa and Andy Davis. And yeah, we're supporting 5 startups. We've released our cohort recently,
That's
very
awesome.
diverse, industry agnostic. We're going to give them all $100,000 and support them over a 3-month program through a mixture of things like expert workshops, mentoring, and just making introductions to partners and to investors on a timely basis. But the main goal is really to remove any challenges or barriers within their way so they can get to their goals and milestones.
Got you. Okay. That's dope. That's dope. So for those that don't know, what is an accelerator? Because for those that are not in the tech industry, knowing
Yeah.
VCs, and you mentioned
Yeah,
a few things
sure.
that.
So accelerators are hugely unprofitable business models,
Oh
to be
wow.
honest, because what they are is basically a company rents out space,
Mhm.
office space, brings in other early stage companies to use that space, doesn't charge them to use that space. Then you actually invest money into them, but you also invest in time, resources, and your network to really help them accelerate and grow their businesses.
Got
And
you.
that's the whole goal. And we've got a range of businesses in different industries, such as Galdem, who are a publication written by women of color and non-binary women, non-binary people of color. We've got Vitae London, which is a watch company.
Dope.
We've got Afrocentrics, which is like a hair and beauty, a hair company.
Mhm.
We've got Tambua Health, which deals with like healthcare through your smartphone, so
Mhm.
like respiratory diseases. So you cough into your smartphone, it diagnoses you
Bruh.
for like things like tuberculosis. And it's a real range of industries. And Trim It, of course, our mobile barbering van. Dope. Like you see the trims on my Instagram.
Sharp, sharp, sharp.
So yeah, a real diverse range of industries. Some
Mhm.
who are tech, some are tech enabled.
Mhm.
But the key thing is we're giving them that opportunity check so they can take the risk and become an entrepreneur, regardless if they fail or succeed. And not enough venture capital is going to people from diverse backgrounds. 0.2% of venture capital went to black women in 2017. That's how shocking it is.
Mad.
You know, so there's a big delta between how much ideas our community has and how much potential versus the amount of money that's actually going into our communities to support these businesses.
Mhm.
And we're one of many change agents to help change the dial on that. The truth is, we want to do ourselves out of a job. We want everyone to be investing in diversity anyway,
Yeah.
so that we don't even need to exist.
Yeah.
And we're getting started on that journey.
That's dope. That's dope. So, the other things. So, what you're an accelerator. So, what are the other ways that people can? So, you mentioned VCs, and do you want to explain
Sure,
those
sure.
terms?
So a venture capitalist is a company that goes out and raises money from what they call GPs. And GP stands for, no, sorry, from LPs.
Okay.
And LP stands for limited partners.
Okay.
And your limited partners could be like a university that has a lot of money in endowment and invests into a VC fund.
Okay.
It could be a very rich family office.
Mhm.
So some sheikh in Dubai
Got you.
who's got so much money, he's hired a small office of people
manage their
to
money.
manage his wealth.
Mhm.
It could be from other bigger VCs who are investing in your fund. And basically, by investing in your fund, they're saying, we believe in your investment thesis, and we believe that you're going to provide us a return within, let's say, 7 to 10 years.
Wow.
Okay, and then the GPs, the general partners, are the people that actually manage the money within the fund
Right.
and have to deploy that by investing into startups
Right.
and supporting those startups. And hopefully, within 7 to 10 years, some of those startups provide an exit.
Got you.
And when we mention an exit, we mean a liquidation event. And what that really means is the company's either been bought
Mhm.
by like a bigger company, let's say a merger or an acquisition, or they've been listed on like a stock exchange, like the FTSE 100, let's
Yeah.
say. In both cases, what you're really doing is selling your shares at a higher price than it was bought for initially.
Yeah.
And that's what gives you the return to your investors.
Got you. So that's a VC. So an angel investor, that's an individual.
An angel investor is just a wealthy individual that invests into these opportunities. Yeah, and these are all like private market, not public market. So they're not listed on the FTSE 100. You couldn't invest in Uber until it is listed, unless you're privy to the private networks
Got you.
that can get you into the deal at the right time.
Got you. So how would a person get into these private networks?
Yeah, so if I was a wealthy individual and I wanted to invest in get into deals, the two things I would do is I would seek out other angel investors and other angel investment networks,
Got you.
so I could like mentor them, shadow them, follow them into deals. And you can see a list of them on the UK BAA website, which is the UK Business Angels Association.
Oh wow.
I believe.
Association of
Associations,
them,
yeah,
wow.
we can provide the links and stuff after the show.
Definitely.
But that has all of the list of like different syndicates across the UK. The other thing is you can look at people that have good deal flow. So like ourselves at Backstage Capital. There's a number of different like YSYS, which is a community of founders. There's a number of Color in Tech. There's a number of organizations that will have good deal flow and founders within their networks. And then through that way, you can also invest. Some like equity crowdfunding, so like going through Crowdcube to invest in like a Monzo or
Yeah.
Revolut, which is another option. And then there's just straight up crowdfunding where you're not giving away equity, but you might be on Kickstarter.
Got you.
You might be raising funds from public in exchange for, let's say, a reward like a T-shirt or something.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Backstage
Yeah.
now.
The other thing is as well is that
Go on.
obviously like, as a founder you can also get money from grants and you can
Okay.
get money from competitions that
Okay.
you enter, and then finally like obviously there's debt, like if you want to get a bank loan or
Yes.
what's it called, the student loans company, I think, is that, yeah, student loans no, not student loans company, the what's it called, startup loans.
All right.
Startup loans, yeah, so the startup loans which are low interest debt loans as well
From
as
banks or
yeah, from government actually. Yeah,
okay.
through different organizations. So Elevation Networks was one of those organizations
Got you.
before. I'm not sure if they still do it now. I think Virgin Pioneers was another. But yeah, a number of organizations can give you a startup loan.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so yeah, back to Backstage. So you've invested in these founders. So what went into like, one finding them and deciding that these startups are worth investing in? What did you?
Yeah, good question. So, two things primarily. One is from our networks.
Okay.
So we've been in this space, especially in the UK, for a while. Myself and Anissa and Andy. So we're well networked in terms of deal flow and scouting. We've connected to a lot of underrepresented groups and founders themselves.
Mm-hmm.
A second thing is just off like PR and marketing. So like leveraging the Backstage brand
Okay.
to attract people to actually apply for our program.
Got you.
And in the end, we had about 1,880 ish applications
Dope.
for 25 spots.
Mad.
So we're investing literally in like 1% of the deals that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Which is good and bad. It's great in terms of like we're getting such great deal flow, but it's bad in terms of like we'd love to support everyone that's applying, right?
Yeah.
They're applying because they want that support.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's quite typical to VC as an industry, actually investing in between like 0.2% to 3% of deal flow.
Got you. Fair. So what were you looking for in these companies? Like,
Great question. So we work with companies that were early.
Okay.
So we're investing $100,000 for 5%, which
Mm.
means that their pre-money valuation, this is all talk and jargon, but
Mm.
would be about $2 million.
got you.
So any companies that were more than that or had grown to bigger than that were out of stage for us. They weren't at the
Got you.
right stage for us. Any companies that are at idea stage were just too early for us to take a risk. So we're looking for companies that were early but had a little bit of traction.
Got you.
So they had a little bit of evidence that they're solving a problem
Mhm.
that's worthwhile.
Mm.
You know, and usually you can see that in the usage.
Mhm.
It's like how many users do they have on a platform.
Got you.
Sometimes you can see that in revenue, like how
Okay.
many people are actually paid for a service, like with Trimit, for example.
Mhm.
Whereas with Gal, them users would be a good metric, for example.
Got you. Okay. Thank you for that. What was I gonna say? Edit this out. Can't remember. People transition. Can't remember, bro. Literally had something on my head.
Well, one thing I will say as well is that like you touched on kind of the way that it's a long game earlier on, and I think you were touching on Simon Sinek talking about like why isn't
that's before we start recording.
before
but
we
yeah.
started recording,
Yeah.
Rahman was dropping bars from Simon Sinek about his latest book, and why it's just important to understand that we're in a long game.
Yeah.
And I think with social media and modern behavior, because of social media, so many people are so caught up in instant gratification and quickly making it and becoming an influencer overnight,
Yeah.
where they're not willing and they're not really putting the work in
Yeah.
for that long game and
Yeah.
that long reward. Like I'm in a position now in my career where I wake up and I do the work I love. You know, I enjoy working day in and day out with Andy and Anissa. I love working with like founders day in and day out. Like it's a dream to do the work that I do.
Dope.
But it wasn't overnight.
Yeah.
Like I started off, like I said, as a management consultant. I went traveling. I went into product management. I like scale ups in enterprise companies. I ran my own company. Like it took me time. Like I'm in my 8th or 9th year of my career. Like it's taken me time to get to this stage.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't overnight. And I just want to emphasize that because it's worth putting in the work early so that that compound interest can really take form. And by the time you're 30,
Yeah.
like I am, it's paying off because you're 30, you're young, you still got like another 35, 40 years of your career.
Yeah.
What would you rather be doing? It's worth that short-term sacrifice to really
100%.
find your feet and double down on what you're doing and become a practitioner. And then do what you love. And I say that even for founders.
Yeah.
Like it's worthwhile going to work for a startup.
Yeah.
Learn from the inside and make your mistakes on their dollar. You know, like learn actually, how do I build software? How do I work with developers? What is development? Should I learn how to code? Let me learn how to code.
Yeah.
Let me practice. Let me build stuff. You know, let me succeed. Let me fail. Let me learn what metrics are. like learn on their dollar,
Mhm.
you know, before you try it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a steep learning curve to be a first time founder and you've never worked within a startup or a scale up. You're just learning so much so soon. It just makes it even an even more riskier bet to take.
Got you. So let me jump on that point that you made. So you mentioned that the book's called The Infinite Game, but you're saying about the long game, and um all these people you see on Instagram, the successful ones, they're not made overnight. So what would you say was like one of your failures that you've had to overcome to get to this stage?
It's a great question. um, I'll definitely say imposter syndrome. Like,
Okay.
I'll see an opportunity and I literally wouldn't even apply because I'll disqualify myself
Got you.
from the opportunity and say that I'm not even gonna get it.
Mhm.
You know, regardless of the reason, you know, whether it's racism, classism, like whatever the reason, or my name, I've got an African surname, I wouldn't even apply.
Got you.
And it just got to a mental state where like, I'm like, am I mad? Am I dumb? I'm not even applying for an opportunity
Mm.
when I have confidence in my ability,
Yeah.
you know. And then from then on, I just show up.
Got you.
It was like, no, I'm gonna show up.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that can happen? If the worst case scenario isn't I'm gonna die, then I'm gonna apply. You know,
Yeah.
and I literally applied that to like any opportunity I was going for. It's like, if I don't know it, I'll learn it.
Yeah.
You know, and if I get in that opportunity, I'm gonna excel and I'm gonna see why it was worthwhile bet to take.
And what was that like change? Like what was it? What happened
Honestly,
to
I
make you
think
get out of imposter
I honestly
syndrome?
think the most Machiavellian thing that's happened to me is honestly when my father passed away.
Got you.
Because
Yes, you mentioned before.
there's this like fearlessness that took over me, and this like confidence and just this awareness of like life is not forever.
Yeah.
And it's finite, it's finite, it's not infinite.
Yeah.
And therefore, if I'm gonna live a worthwhile life, I want to do what I love, and I want to do that every day, and want to spend it with people I love, whether it's my partner, whether it's my child,
Yeah.
whether it's my friends, whether it's my colleagues. And from then on, I was very intentional about opportunities I took and opportunities I said no to. I was very intentional of if I was in a workplace and someone would say something I don't agree with or I didn't find funny,
Yeah.
like joking about black culture, I would stand up and I'll talk about it and I'll interrupt that person, correct them.
Wow.
Because if I don't, who is going to?
Facts.
You know, and it's been beneficial. It's been beneficial, and I'll continue to do that. You know, and it takes time and confidence, like in yourself, to get to that place.
Got
So
you.
a lot of graduates are just not self-assured and self-aware to feel like that. But if you look back at a lot of the great talks that we were talking about before, like
Yeah.
TED talks, like Elizabeth Gilbert, like Simon Sinek,
Yeah.
like Ken Robinson when he talks about creativity,
Yeah.
even some of the Tony Robbins talks outside of TED, like all of them are talking about like really just that Gary Vaynerchuk even,
Yeah.
that self-awareness,
Yeah.
and just doubling down on your curiosity and understanding actually what you love to do and what you want to do more of, and just doubling down on that, and eventually it will work itself out.
100%.
It's just whether you're willing to put that time and work in to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
the other thing that really helped me as well is that I started something called a momentum journal, where
Okay.
I'd literally track encounters that were just important to me.
Got you.
Whether it's like I went traveling, or I met someone, or I had a meeting, or a birth of my child, or a birthday, any encounter that I had that was interesting, I wrote it down and I wrote the date and I wrote who it was with.
Got you.
And then I look back at the end of the year at all of the encounters, and I look at the overlap or the significant patterns. Like, that's interesting. A lot of the things that I wrote down was about diversity and tech and investing and founders. I'm gonna double down on that.
Got you.
The next year, that's interesting. A lot of the awards that I'm getting is in recognition for my contribution in tech and in diversity. I'm gonna double down on that.
Got you.
And I kept on doubling down when I started noticing the patterns that I was tracking.
Yeah.
So becoming a tracker in my own life
Yeah.
helped me.
Yeah.
You know, like I almost was like applying like Google Analytics to myself
Mad.
without going anal.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and understanding actually what does my retention look like? What am I going back to
Yeah.
versus things that I'm churning and not
Yeah.
going back to?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
That's dope,
and
dope.
that was really interesting. Like social media is a really good example of that, where I was always an early adopter to like Twitter and Instagram. Then I came off it
Yeah.
because of network effects. None of my network was on it.
Yeah.
Snapchat the same. But then I've gone back onto Insta and Twitter specifically because of the importance of building out that personal brand.
Yes.
But those are good examples of things that like I went too early, came off it, probably shouldn't have in hindsight, but I've gone back off on it now with intention.
Yes. Yes. You have more purpose of using it, and you know every time you're on it what the purpose is.
Absolutely.
So I remember the question I wanted to ask you, bro. So, what's the day in the life of a MD for Backstage London?
It varies so much. It varies so much. I mentioned before this talk that like we just came back from LA as a team. Before that, we were out in Philadelphia. So today, actually, specifically, I've been working a lot on like talking to people for potential mentors for our program. So really looking at operators with deep industry experience who can open doors for the startups on our program. And I've also been talking to a few people who are in our expert network who are going to be delivering workshops for us on subjects such as storytelling or product management, and really just like giving them a one-on-one on kind of like who our founders are, what the program entails. And then I've had like odd meetings in between with like British Business Bank and a few other organizations. And yeah, that's a typical day. And then just catching up with my team really and talking about things like partnerships and general shit.
Got you.
Yeah.
And so, what skills do you feel like you need to be a good MD for a company?
I think you need a lot of empathy. You need
Okay.
to really understand and empathize with different people's perspectives, whether that's like your managers, those you're working with, founders, partners, because you're really trying to create win-win scenarios with everyone.
Yes.
Like if it's a partnership, I want to make sure that the value that you're paying for this partnership is equal to the value that we're delivering back to you.
Got you.
Like if it's a founder, that I want to know that like the investment we're making in you is adding value beyond the capital, and actually in return we're going to see actually how you develop as a person and professionally.
Got you.
Like one of the things that we're doing with our founders, for example, is these safe spaces where they can get together with other founders outside of us and outside of the program and just have honest conversations on real shit.
Got you.
Like I'm stressful, I've got a child and I'm not balancing this right. Like I need to take a break from work because this just isn't working for me. Like I don't understand how to tell my investor X, Y, and Z message. And they need safe spaces where they can network with other people that are going through similar things that they are, so they can just offload things and have conversation and know that they're not in it alone.
Yes, there's like-minded people in going through the same thing.
Absolutely. So empathy is at the heart of it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a product manager by trade, so like, I always think about like how do I build products that customers love? And the best way for me to do that is to spend as much time with customers, understanding their needs and understanding their problems. So I'm always need to keep my finger on the pulse to understand, like from a founder perspective, what support do they need, what they're struggling with, what can we help them with. And I think just continuously doing that and being present in my communities helps me 10x kind of the impact that we can make.
Got you. So for those that don't know, I've heard of a project manager, but what is a product manager?
Right, so a product manager is responsible for helping to develop usually software products, such as apps and web applications, and they set like the vision and the strategy for what the product should become or aims to become. Okay, and then they would manage that with something like a roadmap, which is similar to a project plan. And on that roadmap, they would have like objectives or goals and metrics or key results for measuring those things. And they'll work with a team of developers, usually in like an agile process. So there's a process called Scrum sprints, where over 2 weeks you say you're going to complete a certain piece of work, and then we have to measure how that piece of work performs once it's live and in users' hands, and then we have to decide whether we iterate on that. So based on the feedback that we're receiving from customers, do we make changes or do we double down on it because it's doing well? So a product manager will be responsible for that and working with developers in everything, and user researchers and UX designers in product discovery, which is discovering what we should build, and then product development, which is really deciding how to build the right things.
Got you. Okay, thank you for that. For those that don't know, so now you know what product design. You mentioned before that there's 25 spaces, right? And you've got 5 right now.
Yeah, so 5 in London, but the other cities have the rest.
Got
of the
you. So
startups.
you only have the 5.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, but it's 25 in total across the 4 cities: Philadelphia,
Got
LA,
you.
Detroit, and London.
Got you. So as far as Backstage is concerned, so your goal now is just to accelerate these 5.
Or all 25 across all 4 cities, but yeah.
So you guys are all. Oh, sorry, that's Backstage London. Should I say?
Yeah.
So as Backstage London, you guys are accelerating these 5. That's those are your responsibility essentially.
Yeah.
And so how does that work going forward? So is it just gonna be those 5 forever, or like?
So those 5 for this cohort, and then
How long's a cohort?
a cohort's for 3 months.
Okay.
And then we'll evaluate and look at the data and understand our impact and look at like what worked and what didn't, and then we'll decide what we do going forward, whether we do cohort number 2, whether actually we double down on investing through Backstage Capital and maybe not do an accelerator program. So we need to evaluate after the first cohort to understand actually is this something we want to continue to do or not.
So potentially, um, after the 3 months, there could be an opportunity for new startups, new founders
Yeah,
to jump on board with
absolutely,
Backstage.
absolutely.
Okay, so um, thanks for clearing that up. So what are your future plans, or what do you see in the future for yourself,
So
Andy?
it's really interesting actually. I'm one of those people that have moved from like having a real like long term vision and long term planning
Mm.
to really just like leading my life through following my curiosity and tracking what I'm doing
Okay,
and using that to just decide my next steps.
got you.
So like at the moment I just know that I'm at this really interesting intersection between kind of diversity, startups and investors,
Mm-hmm.
and I just want to continue to operate in that space,
Got you.
you know, and I just want to continue to help others build products that customers love.
Dope.
So yeah, I don't know how that will manifest, but there's many different ways that will.
Mm-hmm.
One of my interests at the moment, which I'm really curious about, and I'm going to double down on, is really helping people from lower income backgrounds learn how to code from a younger age. So
Yes.
you know, like churches is a great community that I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to get into on another day other than Sunday, and
Mm-hmm.
really talk to their 12 to 13 to 14-year-olds about coding and
Mm-hmm.
leadership and product management and how to build products that customers love.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to work on some sort of program like a boot camp
Mm-hmm.
in urban areas
Yeah.
such as Lewisham, Brixton, Peckham,
Dope.
Tottenham, Wood Green, Hornsey,
Mm.
and really get kids coding from that age, because some of the stronger technical leaders that I've seen in this space started at that age.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we're just not getting that awareness and opportunities in our ends at that age, unfortunately.
That sounds dope. Something I'd definitely be happy to be involved
Yeah.
in if you get that off the ground, bro.
Yeah, no, of course,
Um,
of course. It's one of the things that I think from having a daughter, and my daughter's almost 2 now. One, I've got a greater appreciation as a parent for parenthood. I've got a
mm,
much greater appreciation as to the importance of flexible working. A
yeah.
much bigger appreciation into childcare and the cost of childcare,
I'm
which is
hearing it's a
mad.
madness. Yeah,
And a much more acute awareness of education
got you.
and actually how broken the education system is,
Mm-hmm.
and how much homeschooling and parental guidance I'm going to have to provide with my partner
Mm-hmm.
in really shaping my daughter's understanding of the world and how she operates in the world.
Yeah.
And part of that is helping her to do things that such as develop a logical mindset like an engineer, like
Mm-hmm.
learn how to code, like problem solving, like how to handle money, understanding taxes, understanding investments,
Yeah.
understanding different asset classes like property to startups to
Yeah.
start a business, understanding creativity and how to manifest that, whether it's through art, whether it's through games, whether it's through like starting a business. And all of these things I think are things increasingly that we're going to have to think different about and can't just rely on schools, where I think the impetus has been for years
Yeah.
to rely a lot more on schools, where a lot of that's changing now, I think.
100%, 100%. My next question to you would be like, are you doing anything outside of Backstage, or do you have anything cooking?
Yeah. So like I shared with you on Twitter this
Mm-hmm.
morning, I was at breakfast with 13 or 14 other black VCs, young, who are from London, and we were just talking about how we can support our black founders a lot better
Mm-hmm.
and equip them for this journey of going to raise funding and build businesses. So we're going to do a series of events like office hours where founders can just come in for feedback, pitching sessions where they can just come and pitch their ideas and get feedback. Where possible, make introductions for founders early
Dope.
to like investors. So we're gonna do a lot more there. I've been speaking in schools recently, so like I'm gonna reach out to more schools to just come in, talk
Mm-hmm.
to their sixth form, talk to their young students, and then hopefully in the next 12 months I can try and manifest some of these boot camp ideas that I'm talking about,
Dope.
where we can just start getting people really engaged in like coding
Mm-hmm.
from a younger age.
Dope. No, what you're doing is really inspirational, bro. Thank you for all you're doing. Um,
Oh, the last thing actually is
Go on.
I'm working with an organization called Code 4000, who go into prisons and teach prisoners how to code
Bro,
and helps them get jobs when they come out.
that is dope.
And I just love that mission, and I believe in it. And I've
Mm-hmm.
had friends that have gone to prison that deserve a second chance,
100%.
as
Same.
well. The final thing is I'm a board advisor on 2 initiatives. One called Flipside Advisory, which gets kids from underrepresented neighborhoods into careers in the creative industry.
Okay.
There's a program running like right now. And the second is YSYS, which is a community of founders and creatives. It stands for your startup, your story. I just want to really help them build and scale their operations and what they're doing to impact more creatives across the UK, hopefully, and not just London.
Got a lot on your plate, bro.
but it's all at the intersection I care about.
Got
So
you.
yeah, I love it and I
So
enjoy it.
you find time to do it because you love it.
Yeah, we'll just manage the time I have, right? We can't create the time. Time runs whether you like it or not.
Facts, facts, facts. Okay, great. So how can people get in touch with you?
Cool. So Andy's HVC, and a lot of people used to think that stands for like Andy's gonna be a VC. It doesn't. It stood for actually Andy's high value conversations like these ones.
Dope.
So yeah, Andy's HVC on Twitter, on Instagram, and I also have a newsletter which I'll share
Mhm.
after as a link to this interview. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to listening to the other interviews and hopefully doing this again sometime soon.
100%, brother. We'll definitely have you back on here. But thank you again, and thank you all for listening. This is the End to End podcast. Thank you again.
Boom.
Boom.